As we said in our latest video, 2022 is finally over. But why are we so excited to call off an entire year? Well, that may be because in terms of virtual racing, it had to be one of the most disappointing years of recent memory. But the reasons may be different than you think. And with that, welcome back to Overtake. When we look back at 2022 as a community, not a whole lot of good things come to mind immediately. And that after we were so hopeful going into it. To fully understand where we are coming from, we first have to take a small journey back to the beginning of last year to see what looked so promising. One very popular video from our channel is the top 7 racing games of 2022, which got its retrain this year as well, so if you want to check that out afterwards, you're free to go. If you compare those two, you will surely find something odd. Oh yeah, 2 titles are in both of the iterations. Forza Motorsport 8 and Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown had the very ambitious plan to release in 2022, even though what we know today, that was never gonna happen. They ended up being shifted back a whole year and still to this day do not have a concrete date set for their release. Our videos do release on concrete dates, however. If you want to confirm that, then liking this video, subscribing, and hitting that bell is the best way to do so. But back to 2022. While Test Drive was a bit up in the air always, by the time 2022 rolled around, it looked like a very competitive year for the simcade genre, with both the big guns releasing in a similar time frame. GT7 and FM8 in one year would have been crazy good for competition, and surely in terms of content as well. Just imagine all the comparisons and the war of fan bases. This could have elevated the entire next-gen racing phenomenon to be, well, more than what we got now. But hey, one of the two did release in time, right? And how did that turn out? Oh yeah, I remember. So the delays already tapped into what could have been a good year for racing games. But how did the ones that actually end up being released turn out? The roster of remaining promising racing games for 2022 looked something like this. Bruh. And I already mentioned how I feel about this one. GT7 isn't bad. It's just not good enough for the standard the series set itself over the years. This game ended up being by far the biggest release of the year, and with it, well, the mediocre memory stuck. At release, GT7 was all over the place, and they slowly patched it into something more accommodating. I mean, sure, if we had anything else fresh that we could have played in the meantime, the wait wouldn't have been as gruesome. But as we said, game devs apparently were all focused on the following years already. People will still remember that the build-up to GT7 has to be amongst the greatest and most anticipated in racing game history, dropping hints and trailers well before anyone ever got to see a piece of the game. Fans were ecstatic to finally play it, which makes the outcome actually a whole lot worse. Because even aside from being the biggest racing title release of 2022, it was also supposed to be a milestone of simcade racing, which it just ended up not being at all. Some other titles of 2022 included Grid Legends, MotoGP 22, F1, and WRC Generations. That, Need for Speed Unbound, and Dakar Desert Rally probably constituted the best pieces of content across 2022. And many also thought that these games were flawed as well. So if a year consists of yearly titles and some offshoots from formerly prestigious series almost entirely, and 80% of them don't perform, how could a verdict on that year possibly look like? But I know all of these things don't really include anything sim racing. I bet that part of virtual racing was way better, right? Yeah, sim racing in 2022 took a U-turn after a pretty home run 2021 and went straight back to stale and stagnant. If you now really put your noggin to the test and think of something that took sim racing by storm in 2022, what would that be? Oh yeah, one thing. Affordable direct drive is now something almost all hardware developers offer as their product. This does really make a difference because now you can even experience direct drive while in full possession of both of your kidneys. So something revolving around hardware was the best thing in sim racing in 2022. Sure sounds like there was a lot going on, which there really wasn't at all. Fans and drivers waited for the release of Rain in iRacing, but were only fed their own tears to slip. ACC brought upon some cool DLCs and expanded their track repertoire. But Kunos may already be onto AC2 development, and thus it didn't really go past that. AMS2 is consistently improving and finding new avenues to be the best sim racing game nobody plays. But since it only howls from its abyss of irrelevancy, it didn't really end up producing much more. Both Race Room and R-Factor are in stealth mode, it seems, even though the latter one at least tries to hold a lifeline with frequent patch cycles. In the end, there is a reason Rennsport and its announcement was so wildly celebrated and got so many people talking. The idea of anything breaking up this same old stranglehold is very welcome. But since Rennsport is only announced and doesn't even have a playable beta, you can't really count that towards 2022. And don't get me wrong, by the way, I don't condone the constant need for something new when there are plenty of good things to choose from. But sim racing for me has never hit the critical mass of balance and performance it needed. The games present do things right, undoubtedly, but a stop in development is nothing the scene should strive for. And it's better to leave esports out of the equation entirely. With a steadily declining viewership, it is hard to call 2022 a successful year in that department of sim racing as well. Sure, esports was a topic in 2022, but for the wrong reasons. So a complete home run, right? But why did we take a step backwards and not forward? As for the reasons behind the disastrous 2022, it is at least safe to say that they were of individual nature. We didn't see a huge loss in interest from fans or sponsors, minus the occasional esports series. I think 2022 is the accumulation of bad planning and the world around it going to waste as well. The aftermath of COVID probably had its fair share in these happenings as well. And the good thing is that we see that there's at least the will to go further. A lot of things didn't come to fruition. Imagine a 2022 where Forza Motorsport 8 releases and we get some more innovation in sim racing. Suddenly, the perception could be totally different. No matter what the problem could have been, I think we have a promising time ahead. Of course, there are still a lot of big ifs, but with some luck, we will see a new IP in the sim racing world and the second biggest simcade release of recent memory in 1 year. That does already sound more endearing than the 2022 racing game campaign in general. Most importantly though, I feel like the scene has to learn from 2022. If we end up queuing mid-years from now on and don't capitalize on big chances like GT7 release, then we may end up driving the fans away we gained over the past years. Is there anything you disagree with up to this point? Then you can always go ahead and put that right in the comments down below. And if you want to know why the F1 series will probably stay mediocre this year as well, we have a dedicated video for that as well. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, cheerio.